Hey everyone, welcome back to Rhythm Railroad. So today I'm working on adding block detection to the new siding that I've added on the third level of the layout. I'm going to show you here on the panel where it is. As we come out of the helix, there's a diverging track for the northbound trains that comes around before it goes to upper staging, which is Plattsburgh, and then heads back south. Prior to the siding being added, which you can see right here as undetected or unassigned lines, that's why they're thinner and dark. Prior to that, the train was just coming through the diverging track to Westport, and Westport was considered this whole section here before the next break, which was Port Kent, that then separated that track from Plattsburgh, which is upper staging. So I had a block here, and then obviously 1, 2, 3 blocks here before it exits south to that block. So what I want to do today is simply show you how I do this. And I know some of you are wondering how JMRI block detection works. So I'm going to try to give you the full tutorial on this one block that I'm setting up. At least the way I do it, and I'm going to show you wiring, I'm going to show you hardware, I'm going to show you software, programming, and everything you need to basically set up a block. Now the system I'm using is Digitrax. I use Digitrax for everything, with the exception of some frog juicers that I use on frogs that are off the main line. But all my components are Digitrax, and obviously my block detection is the Digitrax BDL 168. And I have 3 of those set up for all the block detection necessary throughout the layout. So I will take you first to the actual track work so I can show you where it is and how I wired it. Okay, so here we are at the third level. We're at the north side of the siding. You can see the turnout there for the main line that continues north that way. But the siding is a very long siding. This is why I decided to do it in this section. I can actually fit a long train, as long as the longest siding that I have on the lower decks of the layout. But the beginning of the siding actually starts right where the wall separates there. There's a turnout there, obviously. And then the track prior to that, which would be the southern part of it, is the exit track for the helix, which is inside this mountain. So the helix runs in this direction, does 2 laps or 2 loops, and then goes on the other side of the wall before it spits out right there. So that would be the beginning of this siding that I'm adding. Now, I'm not actually wiring the siding part of it right now. I'm actually wiring the main line, because it was already set up before anyway. Remember, there was no other track here except the main line going through before, and I just basically added this outside track as an addition. So the good news about that, which makes it very convenient, is that the feeder wires are already soldered to the track. So all I had to do basically is run my bus wire for the block, and I ran it basically from, the control panel all the way through, and I made it the length of the siding so that I could run any feeder wires down to it, and there would be something to tie into. Otherwise, I'd have to run, really long feeder wires to a shorter location or a further location there. So that was very convenient and very easy to adapt for that. Now, for the siding, I am going to have to add some feeders and drill them down through the bench work so that I can add them to the other block that's going to be done next. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of walk you through this and show you where the connections are made. So I had a feeder already here, coming from that inside track. The wire that actually detects is, in my case, is the track on closer to me. I don't know if you want to consider that the inside or the outside. I consider it the the inside, the outside rather. But that wire has to be connected to the block detection wire, which is this one here. In this case, it's B, because it's the B unit out of the 3. So it's A, B, and C. I'm using the B because I had some open ports there. And so the one wire is actually hooked up to the bus for that port, which is B8. The other wire for the common rail goes to a common wire, which, even though it looks blue here because I just got blue paint from painting this on it, it's actually white. So that wire is for every common rail. So when I go to connect the outside track here, there is going to be another wire coming from the common rail that has to be connected also to here. So let's say I had 5 tracks up here, all the tracks further away from me on each set of tracks would have to be connected to the same wire. The other tracks, the ones that are closer to me, would need an individual wire. So I would need 5 wires for the 5 tracks. I hope that makes sense. So in this case, since we're only adding one more, I only ran 1 wire up to this point, and I basically, what I do is I put a screw in there, and I just, my end point, I just kind of wrap it around and then drill it in a little further and just grabs. And then I'll just snip it here. But I want to test it before I do that, just in case. The reason why you see another wire here, and you can see it's called C2, is because this was the old wire that was feeding the entire section. And it used to go all the way past the siding up to the window there. So it was even further, like the track was even further than I made the siding. But I didn't think I needed a siding that big. And also it allows for another location or another block where, you know, it just adds more interest. And I can fit pretty much an entire train in there. Let's say I have like an Amtrak, I can put another station there at Port Kent and make another stop there. So that's why you see 2 red wires here. One for that, which used to be the old wire for here. That's why there's still openings here, because that feeder cable was originally here. Now, a side note about this, I had a tremendous problem from the beginning when I first set up this long block. And the problem was that the block detection would not let go of the detection. So it was showing occupied. It was showing occupied no matter what. And then the only way I would be able to kind of resolve it was if I took some of the feeders from here off, then it would work over there, but not here. It was like really weird the way it was behaving. Good news though is that when I added this this new siding here, I had to basically break the block, right? So I had to get rid of all the feeders from that turnout on. That's why you have them now for this new track, and that resolved the problem automatically. So I'm thinking maybe it was too much wire or too long of a block, if that's even a thing, for the Digitrax BDL to you know, be able to let go of the occupancy. I don't know. I don't know why that was happening, but the good news is that it's resolved now. So as you can see here now, this would have been showing red. This whole thing would have been showing red right now in the old, you know, wiring. But now it's cleared, and you can see if I put my hand, this is the turnout's there. So this is the next block. This is Port Kent. You can see that as soon as I put my hand on the track work here, it lights up just that section. So that's working correctly now. So that was a good thing. Now, I also had another feeder right here, which I already connected to that new wire. I'll probably add one more in between because I don't like to have such long runs without, you know, feeder in between. And I'll probably add another one like down here, or maybe 2. So just so you know, the wire that I'm running to the main panel, or the BDL168, is running through here. It's going to be obviously coming through the back here, right? It's going to hug the inside of this, and then it's going through the wall and down to this level, because I'm running all my wires for detection for up here through here. And that's the other side of the back of the mountain, basically, which basically is my control panel, which is right here. So I'm going to take you in here and show you how the hardware works and how that wire that I just showed you is connected to there. All right, so here we are at the panel. And you know, I'm not going to talk about everything that's here, but what I am going to talk about is this particular unit, which is the BDL168. And as you can see, this is the B unit, because I labeled them so that I would know which one I'm dealing with, and if anything happens, I could track things easily. So this is A, this is B, and this is C. And obviously each unit can hold 16 different blocks, right? Because there's 4 sets of 4 that go out. Now, the only issue with that is that each block of 4 is connected to a specific breaker or a specific point of power. So the reason they do that is so that in case you have a situation like what I have right now, which is I have these two designated for the main level, and the main level is running off of the bottom booster here. I'm sorry, out of the top booster on the left side. This is actually equivalent to 2 boosters. The DB220 is actually 2 boosters in one. So you got an output on that side and an output on this side. So that side is giving power to this block of 4 and this block of 4 through here. So you can see A and B right here are connected to the same power source, which is coming from that booster. So the power comes up through here and then jumps over, and so that's why you get the power coming to the A and the B zones. So that's why you see zone A and zone B. So these two are getting the power from that side of the booster. This is the new block I'm working on right now. This the 4 here, and I've designated that, which is the C, to control the same area as my 3rd level. Now, all my 3rd level block detection and my staging, my lower staging, is here. That's why, you know, you see so many wires here, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of blocks for the staging. But I ran out of room. So what I did is I jumped from the other booster. So the booster that is connected to that is the one on the right here. So that the right side is feeding this BDL168, which is then jumping all of these wires here. So all of the, you know, the A, B, C, and D zones are all being powered by the booster. Now, the reason why this looks so sloppy right now is because I didn't have those boosters before, and I added them a few months ago. So this was just temporary wiring while I was testing everything. So I got to clean all this up, but eventually it'll look nice and neat like it used to be. So what I did though is I just jumped from here to C with this white temporary wire, so that now C is being powered by the same booster, which means that if there's a short circuit up on the 3rd level, it'll just shut this down, and it'll shut down just these 4 terminals or blocks. It will not shut down these 2 or this one, which, by the way, this is coming from the 3rd booster, because I ran out of room here. This is the A. I ran out of room here. I needed 1 more block, so I jumped it to here. And that's why you have this jumper. Now, this one I did cleanly, so I went through the back. I basically came from here, and I added another, I split in the back, and then I came out through here. So in other words, this one block is part of here. Now, if I need to add more to the A part of the layout, which is the main line, the what I call the DNH part, I have 3 more blocks left here that are being powered by the same booster. Okay, so like I said, right now we're just dealing with these 4 right here that we're adding to the C unit through this jumper cable, and that's how you get the booster to speak to these 4 and this 1 only. All right, now, so the new wire that I just added, that I was showing you before, comes in through here and is hooked into zone C, input number 2. Now, theoretically, what I might label that as is B unit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, B10. Instead of, I mentioned B8 before, but I think I might change it to B10 because that's how I've been doing things consistently throughout. So that's basically it as far as the wiring goes. Now, what I'm going to do next is take you over to my panel and show you how the software works and how all of this communicates back to JMRI. All right, so now that we've talked about the wiring of the track and then, how to get that bus connected to the hardware with the BDL168 and figuring out, what block that's going to go to. Now we're going to talk about how the software communicates with that particular block using that hardware. So this program is called JMRI Panel Pro, and it's in my opinion, a great program to do block detection with and signaling and everything. I know there are other things out there. In fact, I'm looking into CATS, which is another great program, which piggybacks off of JMRI. But more about that later. It's got its own pros and cons. But right now I've been working with JMRI strictly, so that's why you see that this is more developed than a basic panel. But anyways, the first thing you need to do is you need to identify that block. So JMRI basically breaks this down into like 2 big steps, and the first step is to identify the block. So the way you do that is you go to your main menu, which is this box right here. It says Panel Pro, and you go to Tools, and you go up to Tables. When you get to Tables, you're going to see a subpanel. And that gives you all the tables available, and the one we're looking for is sensors, which is basically blocks. So you click on that, that pops up a new window, and what you're going to see at the top is that there are 3 different tabs under this this table. It says internal, LocoNet, and all. I don't use internal. I don't even know what it is, so I stay away from that. And what I do is I just hit LocoNet to avoid seeing other things by hitting the all tab. So once you hit LocoNet, it gets rid of all the internal inputs, whatever that is. I'm still trying to figure that out. And then what pops up basically is all of the blocks that I'm using or that are available. You're going to see that here on the left side, there are addresses that start with LS. That basically stands for LocoNet sensor and then the number. Now you're going to notice that it goes up to, let's say, 88, and then all of a sudden it jumps to 129, and then it goes sequentially to 144, and then it jumps to 197, and then 673. It starts like, it starts it doesn't start to jump without any kind of sense to it, but I'm going to explain why this one says 197 and why these are in sequence, and then right after that why these are in sequence. But you can see what's available and what's not. Basically, if there's nothing here as a description, that's an available block because I haven't entered anything there yet. So that's the left side. Now you're going to notice that all of these blocks I've labeled with an A, and that's because all of these blocks are from that first BDL168 that I showed you under the layout. And obviously it would be 16 blocks because that would be the entire A unit, and that's why you see 1 through 16 here. So those are all taken. That's why I had no room, and I had to actually borrow one from the other BDL168. Okay, the B unit is right here. So it's here, B1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 9 is the one now that I'm borrowing. Remember, there are 2 that are already connected on that block that we're working on right now, and that is B9. The next one, the one that we're going to work on right now, theoretically should be the next block down. So, LS681 is the Westport block, and then L68 682 should be the Willsboro that we're adding now. And then obviously the other unit, which would be the C unit, is all maxed out here because we're, like you saw under the benchwork, there's wires on every single port. So 1 through 16 completely blocked in. Okay, now let's go back to what I was trying to explain before. You see where it says here BXPA1? A BXPA1 is a unit that Digitrax makes specifically for auto reversing and block detection combined. So even though you can get auto reversing from the BDL168, it's a little more complicated because then there's a thing where you have to actually use an entire block of or an entire zone to create a reversing unit. So you would need 4 blocks eliminated in order to create one reversing section. So instead of doing that and giving myself a headache and losing blocks, what I did is I just went out and bought this one unit called a BXPA1, and that allows for just one block with one address, which in this case is 197. That's why it doesn't go in sequence. And then obviously you're using that for that one section, which is your lower staging. It's not the whole lower staging, it's actually the lead. I should have written in lead. There's only I have another one of those BXPA1s for the Helix, and that's all the way up here. Now that I didn't label it as BXPA1 because I know what the Helix is, but that went by default. It set it as LS1. This one I had to change actually. I had to create a new address, and that one was available, so that's why I made it 197. Now I'm not gonna get into how you do that, but just know that anything with the same address is going to create a conflict. So by the way, and this is just a side note, when you buy your initial BDL168, like I did when I bought my A unit, right? The computer automatically, or the hardware automatically set these for me. So I decided to plop them right here, and that's fine. You can take it out of the box, hook it up, and you'll have block detection on these addresses automatically. The problem is when you start buying more of them, they're going to come with the same addresses. I think maybe JMRI might figure that there's a conflict and it'll throw it somewhere else. But I manually did it. I actually set a different block of 16 for C, which they show you on the manual how to do that, how to reprogram it, and then a block of 16 for B. Now, the reason why you see a space here is because those aren't assigned yet, and that's why we're about to assign, hopefully, this next blank one here. So like you saw under the layout, there were 2 wires for that four block zone, and so that would be 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then remember, there was 3 more next to that. 1, 2, 3 with the yellow tape. Sorry, 3 with the yellow tape. That yellow tape was for this guy, which is the one I had to borrow to add to the other section in the A unit. So that's why it's blocked out. So again, we're shooting for this one here. Now, the reason I'm highlighting this right now is because I want you to take a look at this column right here. This column tells you the state at which the block is. So you notice that some of them say unknown, some of them say active, some of them say inactive. The ones that say active are the ones that are occupied right now. So you're going to see that there are, in the C at Plattsburgh, it's 1, 2 active blocks, and then these are all staging tracks, and a lot of them are active right now. Now the reason for that is because in Plattsburgh I have 2 trains. So that's actually 3 trains. There should be another active block up in Plattsburgh. It's probably, let's see. Oh, it's this one here. It's the main line. So Plattsburgh upper staging track 1, track 2 is also active, and then the main right there. Those 3 are active. The rest of them are for the lower staging, and you can see there are trains all over the lower staging right now. So that's why you're seeing all that active stuff. And also, that is why you see them reflected on the main panel. I'm just going to click over to the main panel right here. So the red means occupied. So the main track at Plattsburgh, the first track and the second track are all occupied, which are the trains up there. And then here in lower staging, you're going to see that almost every track except one is occupied. So you can see here that one is free. One, it would be this one going in, and on the other side it would be the same track. It's just a loop that comes around. So everything's working appropriately. There's also 2 trains at Saratoga Springs, which are sitting right there. That's Saratoga Springs here. And there are also 1, and sorry about the camera work here, 2 trains sitting on the CSX line, which would be the B unit. And that's why you see this 1 train here and 1 train there on the B unit. Okay, so all of that is shown accordingly in the table. Okay, now with our particular block, you're going to notice that it says inactive right now. That's because the block has been plugged in, but nothing is actually sitting on it. So the way I figure it out, there's many ways of doing it, but the way I figure it out, if the track is close enough to me, I could just put my hand on the track, just bridge the tracks, and it'll trigger it. It'll actually set it off. For example, let me see if I can get this on the fly here. Okay, yeah, so you're gonna see that Port Henry, or what used to be Port Henry, C2 there, right now is showing inactive. But I'm gonna put my hand on the track, just trying to keep this focused here. So there's your Port Henry, C2. Once I put my hand on the track, you're gonna see that it becomes active. Inactive, I took my hand off, active. So that's an easy way to test it. Also, you can actually see it. That's the block right there. As I put it on and turn it off. Now it's called Port Kent because I changed the location. But that's how you do it. That's how you figure out whether the block is working or not. With that said, if you don't have JMRI and you want to test to see if your blocks are working, you can go directly to the BDL168 and plug in this little device that comes with 4 LEDs. You plug it into that block, and then when you do that, the light will shine on the particular block that is being occupied. So, but this is obviously a little easier to see. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if we can activate block LS682, which in theory will be the future B10. And I'll enter the title of, Willsboro mainline. But we got to get that to say active. Now, here's how I do it. I just basically take one of my rolling stock or a locomotive that has a resistor on it. I'll take like a box car or something with a resistor on it and throw it up on that section to see if it actually, bridges the gap, bridges the rails, which will then trigger the block detection. So this particular car here, just a little box car, I just broke the side, has resistors already installed. Right there, you can see there's a tiny resistor right there. The wheels are filthy, so I have to clean them. Wow, I just noticed that. So that might not pick up great, but we'll see. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna place that car on the main track here on this block, and hopefully that will, if I'm not on that dirt, will trigger the block. So let's see if that's the case when we go back to the panel here. And right now it's not showing. So let me just see what's going on. Well, I found the reason why that was happening. Remember I said the wheels were extremely dirty? I just cleaned them off. So now there's no gunk on them. So we're gonna try that again. I think I just learned something new though, and that is that the wheels that have the resistor on them are getting gunked up and the wheels that don't, like the pair that is not, you know, set up for resistors, are clean. So maybe the electrical bridge there is actually attracting dirt up, you know, into the wheels. So that's interesting. Anyways, I'm gonna throw this back up on the track. I just need my hands to get it up there. Right, so now that the car is up on the track, let's see if that actually triggered up on the panel. And there you go. You can see that it says now active for the selected block that we are working on. And it is indeed the block that we were hoping it was. So now that we know we have, you know, detection there, and I'll show you once I take off the car and go back to the panel, it says inactive. Okay, so that's working perfectly. Let me just put this down real quick. So now the next step is to name this block, because when you go to step 2 and select this block, it's got to have a name already in place. So like I said, I've been trying to stay consistent here. So I'm gonna call this, you just double click on it and you call it, you call it whatever you want, but I'm gonna stay with the pattern here, B10, because it's the next block, and we're gonna call it Willsboro. And we're gonna call it mainline, because it's not the siding. The next one will be B11, Willsboro siding. This way I know the difference between the two. And I'm just gonna make a parentheses here saying that is this is third level. This way I know that it's using the booster that's controlling the third level, because otherwise I'll think that because it's a B, it's using a different booster, which would be the booster for the rest of the B units here. Okay, but remember, this is borrowed space here. So once you finish that, you just hit return or enter, and it locks it in place. So now that's now permanently looking at sensor 682, which in the name of it is B10, but the hardware is looking at this number, not at this. Okay. And then if you want to modify it later, you want to come back, you just hit edit, and you'll get a little window where you can, you know, fix all that stuff if you want to change the name or whatever you want to do later. I'm not going to talk about all these little things, you know, options for checking off. One is for delay. One is for, you know, whether you want to do a global delay, or there's a lot of things. You want to invert it, where occupied means unoccupied and unoccupied means occupied. There's all kinds of things you could do also, but we're just going to keep it simple. All right, so like I said, now that we're done with step 1 of what JMRI requires, which is setting up your block, identifying it, and then setting it up, now we're going to just minimize this window. You don't even have to have it open if you don't want. And then the next thing is we need to now literally name or assign that block to this track that we're trying to show as occupied when there's a car on it. So again, I said this before, but if you see that the line is dark and thin, that means that these have not been assigned anything yet. So you can see over here, I just put these up here because I want to show that there's a yard there. And these are just, again, showing that there's yards there, but none of that is assigned to anything. The white lines, anything in white, which basically my entire layout main line is now assigned. The white shows that it's assigned, but it's not occupied. And obviously, and you can see that it's thicker. And then the red, it means that it's assigned and occupied. So that's how you differentiate between all of that. Now, the red could be green, it could be yellow. You decide what color you want to, you know, place there, or how you want it to behave. Like I know some block detection, when it's red, it means it's not occupied, and when it's yellow, I think it means it's occupied. So, you know, if you want to go with that system, that's fine, but I am used to this. I just see this as like, you know, red, it just gets my eye, so it's just the way I see it. So that's the way we're going to continue to do it. So now here's what you do. In order to modify any of this, you can't do it without going into edit mode, because otherwise you'd be modifying things as you were controlling the panel itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to, I'll do this like the long way. We're going to go to your main panel here. We're going to go to, I think it's under edit. No, it's under, hold on. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong panel. We're going to stay in Panel Pro and your actual panel. And we're going to go to File, Option, right here, Edit Mode. Now, the reason why I couldn't find that right away is because I always use a shortcut. And the shortcut is Control-E. It's just a lot easier. But you could just click on here and it puts the panel in edit mode. Now, the reason, the way you know it's in edit mode is because you'll see a bunch of new categories pop up here with blank boxes, so you can select things, and also because you'll see a bunch of control circles everywhere on the main line and whatever track you're working on. So what you do is you go to your track that you want to work on. You see that there's a control circle right on that segment. So what you do is you right click on the box or on the control circle. It comes up with this panel, and then you're going to go down to where it says edit. All right, once you go to edit, it opens up a window that gives you the option to name the block. So the first thing is, this kind of like happens when you're designing the block detection on the panel before you even get into what the block name is going to be. There's an option to do a solid line or a dashed line. You could change this here if you want to, but I want it to be solid. And then there is a main track or side track if you want to make it thinner or thicker. So you can do it that way. Some people like doing this so they can show sightings in a different way, but I don't really care about that too much. Also, you can hide the track if you want it to be not visible for the dispatcher, but you still want the block detection to happen. You can do that too. But this is really what we're looking at here. So we need to create a block name. Now, if you notice, when I hit the drop-down menu here, these are all the blocks that I've already created. Okay. The one that we're adding, it has not been created here. It has been created on the table, but not here. Now, this is the step that always confused me, because I figured this would be able to see whatever you named the block before. I didn't understand why you had to give it two names for the same block, but you do. So in this particular thing, I stick more to like what it is and not necessarily the number. So I just say like Fort Edward North sighting, something like that. Or something like Saratoga Springs main track, whatever it is. It's up to you. This doesn't really matter either how you name it. It's just you have to decide on some kind of system for yourself. So we're going to call this thing Willsboro Mainline. And I like to do everything in caps, by the way, just because some things are affected if you use different, if I try to identify this in lowercase letters, it might actually not be able to find it or create a problem. So I just leave everything caps lock, and it's just easier for me. So that once you create that, that's going to be the new block inside that drop-down menu. So what we have to do next is actually connect that other thing we did on the table to this thing, which will then connect it to what we're editing right now. So the way you do that is you hit this create edit block, and this is the actual connection point, which I think some people get confused here as well. Now this is where you can also set the color that you want, how you want the occupied block to look. In my case it's red, and then unoccupied white. Okay. If you have special, situations like that, you can also set a color, and obviously you just select it from a list here. So that's the way I do mine. And then what you're going to do up here, you know, there's a bunch of things you could do, but we're just worried about sensor. Remember, we're working with the sensor. And now what you want to do is you want to look for that sensor that we had already created on the other panel on step number 1. And the way you do that is you hit the drop down here, and now you're going to see that these are the actual names of the blocks that I had on the table that I showed you initially. So they're all my A blocks. Just scroll down. They're all my B blocks. They're my C blocks. Even that BXPA thing is in there. My helix is in there, right? So everything I created on the table is now being reflected here. So what we're looking for is that B10. And this is another reason why I like to number my blocks first, like when I label them, because the computer organizes everything starting from the left side by alphabetical order. So that's why you get all the B's together and all the C's together. And then obviously the numbers are next, so it actually lines up all the numbers correctly. And so it just makes things easier to identify. So now this is the block we want to assign to that track. So we're going to click on that, left click obviously. You're going to see that it locks into place, and then you're going to hit apply and watch the little text on top here. Now it just locked it in to that block. Okay, so the block has been updated. It's called Willsboro Mainline, and this is the address. It's given it internally here. It's got nothing to do with what we did before, you know, with that address. So don't worry about that. Just know that it's actually, when you hit apply and you see this, that's when it's actually locked in. Okay, you hit OK, which basically just closes the window, and then you can just hit done here, because now you're done with that. Okay, so now theoretically, this block is now assigned, and that's why now all of a sudden you see that it has turned thicker, like matching the other ones, and it's turned white because there's nothing on the track. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to test to see if that block actually turns red when it's occupied. So I'm going to get that car again and throw it up on the track, but before I do that, I'm going to hit Control E. Right here, Control E, and that puts us back into our regular mode, which is just for operation. And you can see all those menus disappeared and all those control circles disappeared. And now you can see that there's a nice clean line here for that track. Oh, by the way, I haven't assigned the tortoise machines yet and the turnout switchers or decoders here and here. That's why you see that there's no separation. Where like over here where it's assigned, you can see that there's a separation and that the track is lined for the main. If I hit this here, it lines it for the divergent track, and you just heard the tortoise click over, the Pico click over on the turnout. Here, I'll do it again. Not sure if you heard that, but you heard the tortoise, and then the spring inside the Pico clicks it over. So we are going to test this right now. Let me go get my handy dandy car here. And remember, this has the resistors on the wheels. And we're gonna once again plop it up on the third level here on the main track that we are working on. Oops. There we go. Hopefully it'll pick it up. And let's see. And there it is. See how it's now red? It's picking up the block. Okay, so I'm going to take it off once again. And there you go. Here's the car. There's a white line. So that is now set up correctly for the main line. As the train makes its way through, you're going to see this block light up first. And then once it gets into Willsboro, you'll see that block light up. And once it clears Westport, the back of the train clears Westport, you'll see that turn back to white. That'll stay red until it goes into the next block, which will then turn red, which is the one I showed you before up here. I'm going to put my hand on it, but that one's closer, so I can do that. And that's how the block detection works. So hopefully that'll explain things. Oh, before I let you go, always save your work. So if you just hit Control S, that'll give you the last thing you named it, which is my HO layout dispatcher panel. You can hit enter or store. I hit enter, and then it's going to ask you to overwrite. Don't get freaked out by that. You have to overwrite it in order for it to stick. So you just hit OK, and that now is locked it into place. Okay. When you save your work, it's saving this. It's saving all of these panels that are open. Remember the table that we're working on? This is another a panel that I have figured out. You're obviously the regular panel. All of that is being saved. Okay, and it's also saving the markers. So wherever you leave them, it saves them there. So this way, when you start a session, you don't have markers all over the place. And the only thing it does not save, or one of the things that doesn't save, is the orientation of the turnouts. So I made a little shortcut for that, which is in one of my other videos. And if you check it out, you'll see how you can set it up so that you can just hit one button and it'll basically reset the whole layout, which makes things a lot easier. So that's going to be the end of this video. Hopefully it'll help with JMRI a little bit and with just hooking up a block. And that's basically how I did every single block here. And I have a lot of blocks set up. But it's, even though it's a little bit of work, it's worth it in the long run. Just a lot of wire. And I think I have made Home Depot very rich in the last few years with all the wire that I have bought for every single block. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this. Take care.